forget everything you thought you knew about Mercedes-Benz, because the X-Class is probably the most important thing to happen to the brand in the last couple of decades. I'd go as far as saying that this could be as important as the original ML SUV, which was the first luxury SUV. And I say that because it could change people's perceptions about the brand. Obviously, Benz has a fair history when it comes to vans, but this is their first ute. And wouldn't it just look great parked alongside an E-Class or a C-Class in your driveway?
And that's what Benz is banking on, a lot of private buyers who will choose the X-Class over some of its main rivals, big sellers like the Toyota Hilux and Ford Ranger, for instance. But as you may expect, the X-Class range is priced a little higher than most of its competitors. Still, there are 3 model lines to choose from: the entry-level Pure, which can be had in rear or all-wheel drive, the mid-range Progressive, which is all-wheel drive only, and the flagship Power model, again, exclusively with the 4MATIC system.
I'm in the range-topping Power model, which is packed with equipment, and you can option plenty of extras as well if you want. And it's also got an important safety addition, Auto Emergency Braking, or AEB. It's the first ute to get that, and it's standard across the entire X-Class range, which is a big thumbs up. You can read the full pricing and spec story at carsguide.com.au to get an idea of what each model comes with, and I'll get to the interior fit and finish soon, but first, let's talk about how it drives.
In case you missed the news, the X-Class borrows heavily from the Nissan Navara Ute, but Benz has given it a thorough workover. We're talking completely redone suspension front and rear, a wider track for more car-like handling with a tray that's wide enough to hold a pallet as a result, and a big rethink of the exterior design.
For now though, you can only get the X-Class with the same engines that you'll find in the Navara range, but the big beefy V6 is coming, and we're sure it'll be worth waiting for.
The entry-level X220D model is offered in pure spec only and uses a single turbo engine with 120 kilowatts of power and 403 newton meters of torque. Claimed fuel use is pegged at 7.4 litres per 100 k's for the rear drive model and 7.6 for the all-wheel drive. The next model up is the X250D wear driving, which uses a twin-turbo version of that engine and has 140 kilowatts and 450 newton meters. Fuel use is claimed at 7.9 litres per 100. And there'll be a 3-litre V6 turbo diesel known as the X350D, which will have 190 kilowatts and 550 newton meters. Big numbers. It arrives later in 2018.
So what's the 4-cylinder like? Well, we've got the twin-turbo version in this top-spec Power model we're driving, and it's got an automatic transmission and the 4MATIC all-wheel drive. And as a result, it's pretty damn good. The transmission is really smart. It doesn't quite flare as much as the Navara's transmission does, and that's a conscious thing that Mercedes has introduced to this transmission. Also, it's really smooth in the way that it builds power and incredibly quiet, which is fantastic for a ute. Really doubles it up as one of those lifestyle-focused vehicles. As for the drive experience, I can honestly say that all that work Mercedes-Benz has put into this Navara platform has been worth it. It feels more planted on the road, and the steering, while it's a bit quicker than the Navara's rack, it isn't quite perfect. It's a bit slow when you're approaching a corner like this. You've got to put on a little bit more lock than you probably would want to. And that does limit the fun factor, but it's a dual cab ute, come on. As for ride comfort, it isn't perfect, but no dual cab ute in the segment with nothing in the tray is necessarily brilliant in terms of its compliance. That's just par for the course. Sure, you might chuck a few hundred kilos in the back and things would be different, but I expected a little bit more.
While we aren't towing anything here at the launch of the X-Class, Benz says it'll cope with 3.5 tonnes of brake trailer behind it for the 4x4 models, with the 4x2 versions rated at 3,200 kilos. And if you plan to load up the tray, every variant comes with a payload rated at more than 1 tonne as standard. But if you get greedy with options, that could be compromised. Now, you'd expect a certain level of luxury from the Mercedes-Benz badge, right? Even if it is on a hulking 5.3 metre long ute. Well, there's good and bad news on the interior front.
Let's start off with the bad stuff. The climate controls are borrowed straight from the Nissan parts bin, and the font just doesn't look right when you compare it to everything else inside the cabin. It's not only the climate controls that are borrowed from Nissan, you also get a Nissan key fob, even though it's got a Benz badge. It doesn't scream premium to me. But there are some typical Benzy touches, like this big tablet screen on top of the dashboard and the command central codpiece controller that sits between the seats. It's pretty easy to use once you get used to it, and it's a big improvement over the media system in the Navara. As for the materials, there are some really nice touches. This steering wheel, it's borrowed straight from the C-Class and it looks and feels great, but there are some hard plastics. I mean, it's a Ute. What more can you expect? As for storage, it could be better. There's only a couple of small and shallow cup holders between the seats and big door pockets, but that's about it apart from a sunglasses holder. Let's check out the back seat. Not only has the track been widened and the guards, the actual body of the X-Class has been widened as well. So theoretically, you should be able to fit your co-workers or your kids more comfortably with 3 across the back. In terms of actual space, it could be better. Headroom is pretty limited. I'm 6 foot tall and I'm almost brushing my hair on the ceiling here. And you've got to watch here when you're getting in and out of the car as well. Legroom is okay, tow room is okay as well, and obviously being wider you should be able to slide 3 across here a little bit more comfortably than in a regular Ute. There are rear seat air vents to keep the kids happy on long drives, and you do get ISOFIX points and top tether as well. And unlike its German Ute competitor, the Volkswagen Amarok, you do get curtain airbag protection all the way to the back, so it could be a great family Ute if that's what you're looking for. There's no denying that the X-Class has some very likeable traits, not least of which being the way that it drives and the interior presentation. But my tip would be to wait for the V6. As good as the 4-cylinder is, the V6 is undoubtedly going to have more kick. And sure, it'll come at a higher cost, but if you've come this far, let us know what you think. Would you buy an X-Class over one of its rivals? Tell us in the comments section below.